I'm Johnny from Open Studio Patterns, and today we're going to do a little DIY project. Our yard bag sewing pattern can use a little extra flair, so I'm going to make an attachment to add some extra color. These are the materials and tools that I used. I'm using embroidery floss, and the colors that I used are listed below, just in case you might want to replicate exactly what I did here. In addition to the embroidery floss, I have fabric scissors, a needle, and some wooden beads that I'm going to add at the end to create like a nice finished look. You'll need 2 skeins for each pom-pom and 2 skeins for each tassel. I'll have 3 tassels and 2 pom-poms. So here I have 2 of each color, and there's 4. I'm missing 1 here I'm showing you, but there should be 4 of the green and 2 of the other colors. And that is because I'm going to have a green tassel and a green pom-pom. First I'm just going to take the wrappers off of the embroidery floss, and then I'm just going to pull out some of the floss, and I'm gonna probably pull it out so I have about 4 times the length of the skein. So you are on a bit of a journey with me because I'm not really a crafter. I spent a lot of time looking up how to make tassels and pom-poms, and there's lots of ways to do it. But this is what I settled on for this specific project. So I'm gonna cut it loose from the skein. And I'm going to cut a piece that is the length of the skeins. Lie the 2 skeins on top of the thread you just cut. Place it in the center of the skeins and tie it really tight. I'm going to make sure that I have it positioned here exactly in the middle before I do my second knot here. And this is a part of the process where you're going to feel like you need about 20 fingers. Next, I'm going to find the exact center of these loops in the skeins, and we're just going to cut. And I'm going to do it again on this other one, and then repeat that on the opposite side. Next step is to just brush out the yarns and make sure they're nice and neat, and then we're just going to bring them all together, and the yarn that we use to tie the skeins together in the center is going to be underneath, and it's just going to become a part of the tassel. Ended up with about a 3.5 inch long tassel, but we're going to end up trimming the ends off so we can get them all even and neat. The more brushed out and uniformed you have all of your yarns, the neater your tassel will be. I'm going to thread my needle now with the yarn that we cut off earlier, and I'm just going to start by wrapping the end around the tassel here, like towards the top. You leave about, I don't know, about a 1/2 inch at the top. And once you feel like you have this end secure, with a couple wraps of the yarn, you can let go and continue wrapping. But before I start really wrapping, I'm going to make sure this is really tight. I'm just going to thread this needle up underneath what we just wrapped to secure it, and it's going to come out of the very top of the tassel. Pull the loose end out, and then trim this other loose end off. And now we're just going to brush these yarns out again one more time because we're about to start trimming. If you trim your own bangs, then you'll be really good at this. You're just going to bring it between your 2 fingers and start trimming a straight line, as straight as you can get it. I flip it because it wasn't totally even when it gets to the left side of where the ends are. So you just keep trimming and making sure that you're getting it really even and uniformed and nice and neat. I'll just keep combing these out and making sure they're as neat as possible. that's tassel number 1. So just continue this with your other 2 colors. I'm going to do the tassel colors in that kind of champagne rose gold color that I just completed, and also in this kind of wine berry color, and then I'll do one in green as well. You'll notice I did this one a little bit different because one of the ends of the embroidery floss is coming up through the top already. I didn't really like this process as much, so I would recommend using the same method I used with the first one. And now there's 2. So I'm trying out another way of wrapping these tassels. When I tied at the center, I left one of the ends of the loose yarn really long. I brought that from underneath and just used that end to start wrapping. So it's completely attached to the tassel already versus being completely independent from the rest of the yarns. It was pretty easy, and I think I like it just as much as the first way, so you could really go either way. And then just bring it up through the center, through the top, and you have a tail. So now just brush it out and start trimming. And now there are 3 tassels. So just kind of deciding what the order of them should be. I'm going to start with the green at the top and go lighter in the middle and have the kind of berry wine color at the bottom. So you're going to find the center underneath the tassel and thread one of the tails, your second tassel, thread that tail up through that nub, and you don't want to like pull so hard so they're butting up against each other and getting messy, but you want it to be close enough so they're kind of becoming one. So just do it with the third tassel as well, and bring the loose end of the tail up, get it situated really nicely, and you have these 3 tails coming up from the top. So if you had left really long tails and you wanted to just braid these, and that is what joins to the pom-poms, like that could be a method, but I'm going to do something a little different, which is going to be towards the end of this tutorial because I thought it would be a nicer, neater finish. And now we make pom-poms. So it's real easy. You just take one of the ends out and start wrapping it around a few fingers. It really depends on how big you want your pom-pom to be. You could use 4 fingers. There are tools that you can buy that just make pom-poms, and that's fine. I just didn't want to buy another tool. You can also use a piece of cardboard, or here I just showed you, you could use the package for your needles. So you have like a more uniformed wrap. But this works just fine for me. I didn't really have any issues. So you continue on with the second skein. And with the tassels and the pom-poms, it's really your personal preference. I think you need to use a minimum of 2 skeins of this embroidery floss, unless you get like the bigger, the ones that are sold in like a bigger skein. If you wanted to go 3, that would be maybe even better. But I went with 2 here because that's just what I had. Leave a bit of the tail here. We're just gonna snip this off, and you have your little wrapped bundle here. Place it on top of that. Place it on top of that piece that you just cut off, and we're just gonna tie it in the center, just like this. And I'm leaving one of the ends extra long. The one on the left is much longer than the end on the right, and I'm just positioning this in the center of this little wrapped bundle and tying it really, really tight. Again, this is where you're gonna want more fingers than you actually have on your hands. Now just find the center of this like wrapped bundle and cut them in half. So you shouldn't have any loops in here. They should all be loose ends. And do it on the other side as well. And now you can kind of start fluffing it out and trying to make it look like a pom-pom. It's gonna look pretty crazy at first, but we're gonna trim in this kind of like rounded motion all the way. You just bring all of the ends flat together between your 2 fingers and try not to cut that loose end, because we're going to use it, the extra long loose end. We're going to end up using it in a little bit. So just keep trimming here and getting everything as uniformed as possible. So once you've gone all the way around, you're going to fluff it back out, and see it still looks pretty messy and crazy. So kind of move the yarns around and find a new center of the pom-pom, and just keep repeating that trimming as many times as it takes to get it really uniformed and nice. Again, you can buy a tool that makes this whole process much simpler, but I'm not necessarily planning on making tons of pom-poms in my life, so I just didn't really feel that buying a tool was going to be necessary for me. So after you think you've trimmed it enough, shake it out and then take a look at it, fluff it out a little bit, and you may need to do a little bit more trimming to some ends that are sticking out. So that's the first pom-pom. Looks pretty good. Now we're going to do the yellow. So same process. Just start wrapping with one of the ends and keep wrapping until you have both of the skeins around your fingers. I didn't want complete symmetry. I decided I'm only going to do 2 pom-poms. I like the idea of 3 tassels on one side and 2 pom-poms on the other. That is obviously up to you with what you choose, what your preference is. I kind of liked the even number on one side and odd number on the opposite side. And repeat this process of tying in the center of this wrapped bundle. Tie it really, really tight. I think the tighter you get it, the better your pom-pom is, because the center of the pom-pom is as tight as it can be, and on all the yarns will kind of just shoot out from that center. Once you have all of your pom-poms, you can decide which order you would like them to hang. I kind of wish I actually put green on the bottom. I don't know why I put it on the top, because now I have 2 greens on the top, but it's fine. With the tail from the bottom pom-pom, you're going to thread it up to the top pom-pom by going through the bottom of the center and coming out of the top. So you have both of the tails from the pom-poms coming up from the top of the top pom-pom. And you want the pom-poms close to one another, but not too close to one another, so they look kind of mashed together. Kind of the same idea with the tassels that we did. You want them close, but you don't want them too close. So get those positioned properly. And then we can move on to the next step. So now you have your tassels and your pom-poms. For the next step, we're gonna need our needle, and I picked up these wooden beads at the craft store, and I'm just gonna use those to join the pom-pom strand and the tassel strand together. I ended up choosing the longest tail from the bunch. I'm just going to use that to put my beads on. So these tails here, I tied them together, and I'm just going to put them in my needle and thread them through the top of the tassel. In retrospect, if I knew I was going to do it this way, I probably just wouldn't have even left tails on these tassels, but like I said, I'm not a crafter, so I'm figuring this out kind of as I go. So now with this really long tail, you're just gonna start threading your beads. And when it comes to needles, you'll obviously need a needle that can fit the embroidery floss through the eye, but you'll also need a needle that will thread through whichever bead you choose to use. If you decide to add beads as the center part of this project. The needles that I chose were perfect for both, so I had no issues. So after you get those on, you'll want to leave a little bit of the yarn at the end so you can thread it through the top of the tassel. I just went through the very top tassel, came through the center, the bottom center of it, and made sure that the loose end was pulled out, and then you're just going to tie a knot so it's hidden, and make sure you're not tying any of the yarns from the top tassel in that knot. And when you have that all together, you just kind of spruce it up and take it to your yard bag, and I just tied it around once and it hangs from the strap of my yard bag, and it's just kind of a fun little piece of color and adds a little something to your yard bag. Hope you have the best time making yours.